Hey y'all, it's me. The glow up is. Listen. Y'all, I'm so excited to be with y'all again this week, man. Episode 38. Oh my gosh, it's amazing, man. God is so faithful. God is so good. I'm hoping and praying that this is touching somebody, making an impact on your life because it's making an impact on mine. Listen, God is just so good. God is so good, man. He's allowed me to be consistent. And this is what we do, right? At the Glow Up is we grow to glow. And y'all, every day, I'm always taking different opportunities, right? And trying to learn from the things that I'm going through, right? And just looking at different ways, right, to see things differently, right? Asking God for His perspective, asking God to, show me what it is that you want me to see out of this thing, out of this situation. Um, Help me to be able to elevate, help me to be able to grow, right? Because this is what God wants us to do. He wants us to grow. He wants us to grow through the pain. He wants us to grow through the sorrow. He wants us to grow through the things that we don't even want to grow through, right? Sometimes, y'all, we don't even want to learn to even accept the age that we get ready to turn, okay? But at the end of the day, right, you begin to embrace it. You begin to take on that because it's a blessing. And it's all in how we look at things. It's all in how we receive things. But today, y'all, I just wanted to get on here, man, on today because I had to remind myself of who I was, who God says that I am. And that is exactly what I'm going to do for us today. We're going to remind ourselves on who God is to us. Like, and who he says that we are. Like God says that we are more than a conqueror. God says that we are heirs to the throne. Listen, we got to act like it. We can't just be saying it. We got to live it, right? And every day we make an effort, right, to try to do the right thing. Even though sometimes we don't want to do the right thing, we try to do the right thing because at the end of the day, like we know that our Father is looking at us. Like we got to grow through this thing. Listen, and this is how we get that glow. You see what I'm saying? We glow, we are glowing. And so I'm excited, y'all. I'm so excited because just in this week in itself, man, I was reminded, right, of the foundation of who God says that I am. And it's only in Him that I can truly find my own identity. It's only in Him that we can begin to connect to people, right? Who know Him. And y'all, this is a real thing. This is a real thing. Listen, so when I got out of a relationship. I was in a relationship for 5 years, and it it was one of those things for me where I felt like, this was my person. This was going to be the person that I really thought that I was going to be with, right? But then a part of me on the inside already knew, right, that even though I had invested all of this time, like I knew deep down inside, this man probably won't change. And it's a lot of things that I need from him that he probably won't even ever evolve into. And so I began to put all of my expectations on him, right? And also had my own expectations of myself because if I'm hard on me, then of course I'm going to be hard on him, right? But that wasn't fair. It wasn't fair for me to put all of that on him. And so I had to remind myself of who I was in that relationship, right? But I also had to remind myself of who I was apart from that relationship because that relationship didn't define me. And I think sometimes what happens is that we connect ourselves to people not knowing that they are not of the foundation of where we come from. Like they can have different perspective, right? But we still have to be like-minded, same values, right? And I think that sometimes for us, like we really do have to be intentional with who we connect ourselves with because the reality is that I don't want to be with a man, right, that is not serving God. Period. I'm just not. That's just not something. I'm not trying to bring you to God. I'm not trying to help you find your way to God because I need for you to understand and I need for you to know who you are. Because if you don't know who you are, I have no time to remind you and tell you who you are. Like I can be your reminder, but I cannot tell you who you are. And it's all in what you believe that you are. Because if you believe it, then you're going to also act upon that, right? So if you believe that you are the man, that you got this thing, then you just going to be reassured in knowing that, I got this, right? And even when you don't feel like you got it, right? I can be that reminder to remind you that you got it, but you got to have the core, like you got to already know who you are, because if you don't know who you are, then you can fall for anything. And I understand we're all human, but again, right? I can't be out here trying to save you, and I got my own things that I'm going through too, right? Because at the end of the day, we're growing collectively, but we should also be growing individually. And this is a real concern, because the reality is, right, is that a lot of us are just connecting ourselves to people who have no idea, nor do they even have any of the core values that you have. A lot of us say that we love God, right? But God wouldn't even choose the people that we've even decided to choose. You get what I'm saying? God wouldn't necessarily choose these people, because these people hearts, like if we really saw the people's hearts that we connect ourselves to, if we got to see them the way that God really sees them, whether or not if it's they're walking dead, right? Whether or not if they are out here literally trying to figure it out, if they got a whole plank in their eye and you get to see the size of that plank, I wonder whether or not if it would discourage you to even connect with them, let alone have kids with them, let alone have a relationship with them to try to build something, right? But a lot of times what we do is, right, we get so caught up in our feelings and our emotions, right, that we begin to attach ourselves to people. And I think that sometimes even when we attach ourselves to people, right, what we fail to realize is that they can't feed us the way that God can. They can't complete us, right? The way that God can, because at the end of the day, even though it's not fit for man to be alone, right? We still have to do the work. We still have to know who we are. And a lot of us are literally walking around trying to figure out exactly who we are. And so when I say that we are heirs to the throne, we have to act like we are heirs to the throne. We can't just be out here just acting willy-nilly, right? Because I'm a straight shooter. I'm one of those people. I'm just gonna say what I got to say when I want to say it, right? But then at the same time, too, right? What I know is that my partner, right? Also, even though he may be different than I am, right? The reality is that we still can come together, right? And our common ground and our common, right, theme and our common foundation is God. And so because God is our foundation, we can't stay mad at each other long. We got to communicate, right? And so the reality is that if we're not communicating with God, we can't think that we're even going to be able to allow our emotions and our ego, right, to not get the best of us. I'm just saying, y'all, because the reality is, right, life be lifing, right, and God still be God, and God still got everything under control, and He holds all things in His hands. Period. Um, and so with that being said, all I'm saying is that we must trust that God has everything under control, because the reality is that sometimes we get so caught up in our own feelings, right? Is that our feelings and our emotions and the things that we feel, they begin to define us, and that's not what God called to define us. So I'm reminding us, you hear me? I'm reminding us today of who God says we are. We are not like the world. So we can't just be out here just doing what we want to do. Listen, before you even start dating, and this is a real thing, and I'll just give this tip to you, because the guy that I've been talking to for a while now, one of the first questions that I asked him was, listen, who is God to you, right? Who is God to you? I really needed to know that, because it was so important. And I feel like, even having him as a friend, right? Because the reality is that I don't want to connect myself to anybody who's not connected to God. And I knew that, because the reality is that I can't just be bringing anybody into I can't bring you into God's presence. I need to find you in God's presence, right? And that comes from Dr. Miles Monroe. Shout out to Dr. Miles Monroe. He's a beast. But anyway, I'm just saying is that I should not be bringing you to God. In like, you can have a desire of God, but I'm not dating potential anymore. Either you got it or you don't, right? And so for me, one of the basic qualifications of him even being a friend to me was, and for me to even connect with him, right? I was like, well, who is God to you, right? And instead of him saying God is my everything, he was very detailed into who God was for him. So I was like, wow, this is amazing. So he knows God to be this, right? So he's had to be in some type of capacity, in some shape or form, right? He had to be going through something in order for him to know that God is his rescuer, God is his friend, right? God is his mind regulator, God is all of these things to him and all of these qualities. And so I was just like, wow, this is amazing, right? And so I had to pray on that thing because it was very attractive to me, right? In that moment, that I was just like, wow, he really knows who God is. So, because you know who God is, right, and you have your own personal relationship, what you first won't do is depend on my relationship to get you out of nothing. And you're also telling me that you are whole all in yourself because you know where you come from, right? And I'm saying all of this because I ain't gonna put all his business out there like that, but it was beautiful to be able to hear that from a man, right? Because you don't really hear that from a man. You really don't hear that from a man, right? Man can say he's my everything, and even to the ones that's in church, you know what I'm saying? They don't even get. It's almost like they don't even know who God is. I'm just saying it's crazy out here in these streets, right? Everybody just blending in now. It is so crazy, but God will begin to separate and God will begin to show you, right? And I've been talking about the fruit. And so that's one of the things too that I've also been doing is like, God, show me. I need to see the fruit. You know what I'm saying? I need to see this man fruit. You see what I'm saying? But I didn't even have to say I need to see this man fruit because the fruit was just coming. It was just, I mean, that thing was just growing. The fruit just been growing and growing and growing. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing, right? Just when you think, just when you think that there is nobody out here, there's no men out here, right, that's out here really intentionally living for God. Ain't nobody out here trying to do these. Listen, the world will have you so distracted, right, and so focused on all of these different things, but when you least expect it, things begin to happen. And so I don't see nothing wrong with you building building with somebody and trying to figure it out, right? And especially when things begin to be natural to you, things begin to be easy for you, right? And I think that sometimes when you're in a long-term relationship, those things can kind of discourage you. Those things can kind of get to you and make you feel like, you know what, I don't know if I really want to do or want to even be in a relationship anymore because I've now lost my identity, right, in this person. And that was something too that I had to be prayerful on, is that I had to ask God, I need your help with my identity, right? I need to also get myself, because in some shape or form, what I did is that I was searching for something and I found it, right? But what I didn't realize is that I had it in me the whole time, which was you. You had never left me. You had never left my side. You was always there. You've always continued to just show up and be God for me, right? And so the reality was, right, is that I wasn't recognizing it and I wasn't realizing all of these different things. But what I began to see, right, and God begins to allow you to see people for who they are, is that the closer you get to God, the more He begins to show you who a person really is, right? And you begin to see things and things begin to be exposed, right? And so, the last relationship that I was in, I was like, man, I don't know whether or not this thing gonna work. I don't know whether or not if this is, And so me being, fresh out of this thing, I was like, man, listen, I gotta be purposeful this time. I'm just not going to be in a relationship. I'm just not going to do this. I'm not even going to look for it. I'm not going to look for love. I'm not going to look for any of it. And even now, right? Things are still fresh. And so, you just want to get to know people for who they are, right? Because at the end of the day, even if I were to just say, okay, well, this is just not going to work in a relationship capacity. But guess what? This may actually work in a friendship capacity. And I'm okay with that because I don't want to be around people that aren't like-minded like me. I want to be around people that are like-minded, right? And so the first thing is that I have to be able to, trust that God got you, right? The same way that He got me. You see what I'm saying? And so um it's a beautiful thing when you can honestly say, man, I know who I am because God shows me every day who I am. God never gives up on us, man. He loves us, and He loves us so unconditionally. He doesn't love us with conditions. He doesn't love us because of what we do for Him. He loves us because of who we are. He loves us just because. Like, there's really no reason. He just loves us, man. And I just love that He loves me like that. I love that he just loves me even in spite of, even when I neglect him. I'm just thankful that he just loves me just because it's a real thing. Like when life is life, and right, God still loves me. And I can share that love, right? But I can also continue to grow that love. I can always go higher, right? In God, I can always, ask him for, God, give me more perseverance. God, help me to get closer to you because I want to know all of the things that it is that I'm supposed to be doing. How am I supposed to work this thing out, God? How am I supposed to do the next thing that you called me to do? Who have you called me to? What are the audience? What is the group of people, God, that you have for me to be able to love on and for them to be able to love on me? I thank you, Lord, already, right, for people that are meant to come across my path. I'm thankful for them. I'm thankful for ministry, right? That I don't even realize that I'm even in ministry sometimes. You see what I'm saying? Because I'm just being who God has created me to be. And so I'm thankful for that I know who he is, that I can't just be easily persuaded, right? That I can't just be, manipulated, right? And talked into to do something just because, you need to be doing something. Like, no. Like I am very comfortable in my skin because God has made me this way. Like God has literally reminded me that I am his. And that's all I need in this world to survive. All I need to realize, all I need to ever know is that I'm his. I belong to him. And that's all we need to know. We need to remember, we need to be reminded that we are his, that we are his responsibility, that we don't have to carry things the way that we need to carry. Like we don't have to do that, right? Like God says, listen, I'm yours, you're mine. You belong to me. And so when you gave me your yes all of those years ago, right? And I'm always constantly evaluating that, y'all. I don't know about y'all, but I'm always constantly evaluating that. And I'm like, God, look at where you brought me from. Look at where you brought me to. Like, I could not ever see Charlotte, North Carolina in the cards for me, even though I desired it. But I was just like, man, I don't even know whether or not this is going to happen. But I was just trusting and believing that God was going to do this thing, right? Because the reality is that I'm talking about me being young, right? And sometimes you don't see things because when you're young, you're out here making all different types of choices, right? That can mess up some things later on down the road. And I'm thankful that I didn't mess myself up but so much, but I'm thankful too for God's grace and his mercy because his grace has been so sufficient in our lives. And so even though the world wants to take your identity from you, be constantly reminded, man, that God has something great for you, that you are the head and not the tail, that you are above and not beneath. Like that God really wants to do something in your life if you allow him to. All he wants is your yes. All sometimes he wants to do and sometimes that he wants to see is the yes in action. He wants to see the yes in action. And I'm saying this because I don't know who need to hear this. Listen, God wants to see your yes in action. He wants to see it. He doesn't just want you to talk it. He wants to see it. And so because he wants to see it, right? You then begin to be in alignment. And isn't it a wonderful thing when you know that you know that you know that you are in alignment? Y'all, this is the first time in a long time that I can honestly say that I'm on the right path. This is the first time in a long time where I know that my life and the people that I have around me, because I don't have too many people around me. God knows I don't. I do not. I don't even fool with a lot of people, right? Because my spirit is so sensitive to certain things, right? And so y'all know I've been working on this cussing. Lord knows I've been working on this cussing. This cussing thing has literally been giving me challenges, right? I've been literally challenged with these things. A lot of other areas in my life, I feel like I'm great, I'm good in those areas. But cussing for me is one of those things because, like, listen, when you at a job all day long and you have to talk to people, right? You're talking proper, you're talking in all these perfect sentences and you're doing all these things. Sometimes you just get tired of doing it. I don't know about y'all, but sometimes I get tired of doing that. And I work 10-hour shifts. So because I work 10-hour shifts, sometimes I'm just burnt out. By that time, I just want to be Toya in that moment, right? And I'm not saying that Toya just, like the cuss. It's just, but sometimes it just come out. But as of lately, I've been being intentional, and I've been being intentional now for the past couple of months, right? With my cousin. But at the same time, for me, again, I say this all to say is that to God be all of the glory, right? Because I know that I haven't arrived in that area of my life. And I know I got a ways to go. You see what I'm saying? But I can honestly admit that, at the end of the day, right? God is still working with me. He's still dealing with me. He's helping me to cleanse my mouth out a little bit more, right? But he's also making me aware. And that's the part for me where I'm just like, man, it's making me aware. It's almost like he's allowing me to rewind and to hear myself say it and then correct myself. Even if I'm around other people, right? That I know that are around me that I can affect, right? I can affect their spirit. So I'm mindful of that, and I will actually apologize. And I even was one of my good friends that I was talking to recently, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just cussed. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I just cussed, right? But what I'm doing is I'm taking accountability for it, right? But then I'm also being intentional with trying to get better. And so I'm praying on that, man. God got that all under control. In due time, all of it will naturally flow. And I'm just trusting God on that, and I'm believing it. As long as I continue to give him my yes, as long as I continue to allow him to have his way, he is going to take that from out of my mouth. I know he is. But I'm thankful for it. I'm thankful that those things don't define me. I'm thankful that my choices, they don't define me, right? But they can create the results that God needs to see for my life. So, and for our lives, like we're in this thing together, right? And we continue to talk about this because we got to be intentional with who God is calling us to be. We got to be intentional with who he is, because it's in him, right? It is in God that we can even learn and be even be able to grasp, right, who we are. Like some of us don't even know who we are, and we may even be older than 30. Like, some people are still trying to find their way. They're like, no, I'm still trying to find myself. I'm finding myself. And I'm like, why are you trying to find yourself? You gotta find yourself. Why do you have to find yourself? Is that something that you say that you gotta find yourself? Or is that something that the world said that you had to do? Right? Who even came up with that? Like God says already, to know thyself, right, is to know me. And so the thing about it is when you decided to give your life over to God, right? You are learning yourself all over again, because the reality is, right, is that you're continuously learning who God is, man. And God doesn't change. He has so many elements to him, but he wants to reveal himself to you. So the closer you get to him, the more he can reveal to you. But if you don't get close to him and you don't keep him first, and you're not trying to get things the way in decency and in order, listen, man, listen, God has a way of humbling you. God has a way of humbling you. And so the thing is, man, there's no person, that's better than the next person, right? We're all in this thing, and we're all in this journey called life. Like, yeah, I understand people got money, but listen, money ain't everything. I'm telling you that now. Yeah, it's a resource, but it's not the source. The source is God. And without God, we can't please him. Right. And so that's why I say at the end of the day, man, we got to stay focused. We got to continue to allow God to show us who we are, not our circumstances, not our situation, not that bill that's due, not that car, all of the things that can be taken away and taken from us, right? Even people, they can be taken from us, right? Because that's the thing too. It's like we can't get so attached to people. We can't get so attached that we don't know how to detach. We don't know how to trust God. Like, listen, earlier this year, middle of this year, actually, I lost one of my closest cousins. And God knows that I love him, right? And I sit here and sometimes I still get choked up just thinking about it, because I'm so used to talking to him every day. Like every day, I'm so used to talking to him, right? At least once a week, I'm used to talking to him. And if I don't talk to him, I'm talking to his girlfriend. I'm talking to her, because the reality is, right, is that, I always wanted him to know that I loved him, right? And I always wanted him to feel that love. I didn't just want to tell him that. I wanted to show him that. And so sometimes in life, we can get so wrapped up, right? Because of the love that we have for people, we can get so wrapped up in our identity, right? Because I'm like, man, this title of cousin is a real thing, right? But God says you're putting titles there, right? And even though you are a cousin, right? The reality is you're mine first. And so even in the pain, Toya, I need for you to smile. right? I need for you to understand that there's going to come a time where you're not going to be here on this earth anymore, right? And there's going to be other people that are going to be able to help fulfill what it is that needs to be fulfilled on this earth. Like, I literally have to detach myself, because the reality is, right, is that I love people, but I have to love God more. And that's what God is really, really wanting all of us, right, to be at. He wants us to get comfortable, right? Even in the uncomfortable, even in the discomfort, even in the loss, even in the grief. Like, we have to be reminded constantly of who he is. We have to, because if not, man, we will lose our identity. And some of us, man, I don't know who I'm talking to, but I'm just saying, like, sometimes like those people that pass, they take us with them. Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like we died with them. And God says, I can resurrect the dead. I can literally resurrect you if you give me your yes. If you tell me yes today, I can put you into a whole new identity. I have people looking at you and thought that they knew you, and you be like, girl, you ain't know me. I say it all the time, like, no, because I'm new. Every day, man, God gives me new grace, new mercy. He gives me new grace, new mercy. He gives us new grace, new mercy, y'all. So, y'all, we get to choose. We get to choose today. Who you want to be today? Do you want to be the upset, the do the right thing today? Do you want to be that today? Or do you want to be petty today? You get to choose. You get to choose how you want to respond. But none of those things, right? And all of the things of the world, they don't define us. That's the beautiful thing. Like, that's why I said today, y'all, we just gonna be reminded of who God calls us to be. Who does God say that I am? Not worried about the people. Who cares what people think? But what does God think about you? What does God think about us? What does he say about us? He loves us, right? And so we got to be intentional with this thing. So anyway, y'all, I just wanted to get on here, man, on today, man, and just encourage you and just continue to remind you, man, that you are who God says you are. Just be reminded of that, because we can get so caught up in this world, man. We really can. We can get so caught up in this world because we living in it day to day. We see the news. We begin to allow the news to affect us. We begin to allow the people that we love to affect us and our minds and our perspectives. And God is like, did you ask what my perspective was on today? Do you even care about what I think about you? Like, you are beautiful. You are wonderfully made. Like, this is a beautiful thing. When God says you are beautifully and wonderfully made, like, seriously, God thinks that I'm beautiful. And so if God says that I'm beautiful, he thinks that I'm beautiful, guess what? I'm beautiful. God is not like man that he shall not lie. You see what I'm saying? Guess what? I ain't everybody's cup of tea, and that's cool too. I ain't meant for everybody to sip from. Everybody don't need to sip from my tea, and that's okay. You see what I'm saying? Because God is good. But anyways, y'all, I love y'all so much, and I'm gonna see y'all next time on the Glow Up Is, because this is what we do. We grow to glow. All right, y'all. Bye.